How's it going today, everybody? Steve Rock from Reverbnation Films. I'm so glad to be back out here in the garden today. And so, it's beautiful. It's about 75 degrees. It's been really warm last few days. We may still get a frost, so it's kind of hard to be too confident in planting stuff, which is why we're going to start with doing things in containers. So I've got a few of them that I like here. First off, I've got this one. It's a half whiskey barrel. It's actually plastic. And it came with this nice tray in the bottom and a nice big drain hole inside. So this is like ideal for what you want to use when you're doing your containers, because this is going to offer a lot of good drainage, a nice amount of space, and you'll be able to fit quite a few things in here. And I'll show you the lettuces that I've got going. We actually have sort of a before and after, because I was planting them a few days ago, and unfortunately the audio wasn't working very well, which is why we have a few more mics than we used to have. So basically I'm trying to improve the audio and the content as much as I can. So please bear with me if there's been any inconvenience caused by that stuff. I do apologize. But back to the topic. So containers, like I say, the half whiskey barrel, it's got this nice screen that stays on the bottom. This holds your soil up high enough to let like a pocket of where the water can draw in. It's also got channels in it that pull the water towards the center, and then that drain hole in the center that lets the water out. So that way your plants sit on a nice shelf of soil that can well drain. It can have access to some water on the bottom, but it's never going to be soaking and drowning, which is what you need for a container. You never want them to be, able to hold their water for too long, because as everybody knows, still water becomes toxic. There's different things that grow in it. It doesn't allow oxygen to flow nicely, and eventually you end up with a very dead-looking pile of plants in a container. So this is the kind that I really like using. I use this for my lettuce ones on the front and the back porch. It's just because it lets you grow a lot of things in it. And I'm probably going to throw an onion or two in here as well. Maybe a few flowers, just to be able to have something nice on the deck. And it'll also keep some of the bugs out with the onion in there. There's a lot of bugs that don't like onions, and they don't like garlic, which is why I like to grow it along with other things. That way, it's a little extra protection. Will I get a nice bulb out of here? Maybe. But it's more about protecting the other plants. The other kinds of containers we got are these. And these are a whole different variety of sizes, of different ones, and even one like this that I saved from another previous plant. So this one, I bought a potted plant, might have been for inside, might have been for my mother, I'm not sure. But I kept the pot because it was actually like a nice thing to use. It has a drip tray, it snaps into place, and it's got all of these holes for drainage. Same kind of idea, where only so much water can stay in here because the rest will evaporate out. So you want to make sure that you're using it that way, so that way you don't have a mess underneath it, or you don't have toxic water sitting in the bottom of your soil, eventually becoming not good for the rest of your plants in there. Can't hold a lot, but it can hold something nice, like maybe one nice big flower, maybe a couple small flowers. You could get away with like a strawberry or two in here. It's not a lot of space, but it's enough. But you don't want to do anything too big because there's not a lot of space. So for bigger stuff, or for like a more variety of stuff, you're going to use a bigger container. This is another one that we bought that has some nice features. First off, comes off with the bottom of the drip tray, and it has a screen built into the bottom. This actually doesn't come out, it's in there. And this functions the same way the others do. It even has a nice little indentation like a thumb hole here. Makes it easy to pop the bottom off, and it also allows that extra water to go out of here, so that way it doesn't stay in the bottom. So really good drainage option. This guy doesn't show its price, but none of mine are very expensive. You know, I can't say that I've ever spent more than like 15, maybe $20 most on a container. Um, there are other ones besides these plastic types. They just happen to be the ones that I have, and they've worked very well. There's other ones like stone ones that are much more expensive. You can get terracotta or ceramic ones. There's all sorts of different types and different styles. It all depends on what speaks to you. There's different advantages and disadvantages to all of them. The thing with ceramic is because ceramic breathes, that kind of helps you with the drainage where the water will seep out of the porous sides over time, so you don't need to have as many holes in the bottom or like a screen. But, you know, and it's a very old school way to do it, and it's very decorative, but they can also be very expensive. So these are all things that I have that, you know, usually I spend about $7 to $15 on a container, and I only get ones that I like the look of. So I really kind of like this wood barrel look, even if it is plastic. And these are the ones that I started with. And with these ones, a little shovel in there for later for troweling. With these ones, they actually came with markings on the bottom to drill the holes. It's really important that you do that. I actually have some new ones that we're going to be drilling here in a second. And the reason that you need to drill the bottom is because same reason you want to be able to have the water to drain out. Now remember, this is not going to have a drip tray below it, so either you put one down or you put it outside somewhere where you don't worry about the water running out. So maybe on a stump, maybe on a big rock in your lawn, maybe on your deck if you have like slatted decking that just lets the water drain through. Any of that would be fine, because otherwise, you know, you're going to end up with a mess. But they usually come no holes drilled. This one actually is nice enough to say right here, drill hole for drainage is necessary, and it gives you approximate marks all over it where it would like you to do it. You can add more. You can also make the holes bigger. I used a relatively big screw drill there. There's a couple others that we did recently. So there's this guy, and this guy has a screen piece that goes on the bottom, but the bottom didn't have any drainage. So this is the one that we're going to be drilling. And by the magic of television, we've already drilled it. I'll put the footage here. These are very, very small holes, but there's a lot of them, a lot more than they tell you to do. And the reason being that I want to make sure that the water drains out nicely, but it's already going to sit on a shelf above the bottom. So I'm not really too worried about it, you know, pooling, because as long as it goes, it goes. So I made sure that on the inside, there's like a cross pattern all the way across of, 9 holes. So that way, no matter where the water sits, it has a slow drain out. And then another one like this big guy, we put the big holes in him too. Now the kind of soil you're going to use in this, usually you want to use the same kind of soil almost like you do for your container beds. You want to have a mix of a peat moss or a cocoa coir. Cocoa coir is better for the environment. Peat moss is sometimes cheaper. I'm not here to make a moral decision. You decide. But besides that, you know, you want that. You want topsoil, just regular, normal topsoil. And then you want to add something like a cow manure is what I tend to use for composted humus and cow manure mixture. Some people use other types of fertilizers that you could get. You could also make sure that you get something like a very, very expensive bag of pre-made soil. I prefer to do a mixture because it's just a lot easier, a lot more cost effective for me. So I've got the topsoil and the cow mixture in there right now. We're going to add some more cow to it just because. And then I'm going to fill up one of these and get it planted. Now they're kind of a little bit falling over. Some of them look good. I expect all of them to just perk up and get going, once they establish themselves in the soil. Whenever you transplant from a seed cup or into a bigger pot or anything like that, you're going to have a little bit of transplant shock no matter what you do. It's just unavoidable. And what transplant shock is basically the plant goes into the newer, bigger area that's got different environmental conditions. So it's going to have more nutrients and, actual things like rocks and stuff like that might be in there. It'll also have, of course, your earthworms and any other bacteria and single-celled organisms and all that stuff that's in that soil that these guys haven't been exposed to yet because they grew up in almost a sort of sterile condition. So that's why, first of all, you need to harden your plants off before you really get them going. In containers, I can still move this in and out as I need to. So these will still get hardened off a little bit more as we go here, but these I plan on leaving in the container and keeping on the porch. I've got the rest of them still in their tray and moving in and out because they're going to go into the beds over here as soon as they're ready, maybe even as soon as next week, especially since I have those container protectors that I can put over. They're like traffic cones, and I can put those over the different plants and be able to give them some extra protection, especially at night if it gets to any kind of like freezing frost conditions, because that does happen. But also in here, I'm going to be planting some extra things. Not that dandelion, but we're going to be putting maybe some flowers in the corners, maybe some onions in the middle to try to detract other insects from going towards it because they don't like the smell of onions, that sort of thing. So I'm not necessarily finished planting in this container yet, but for the purposes of the lettuce, yeah, this is all I'm going to put in for now. Over time, I'm going to keep a salt shaker full of lettuce seeds, so whenever I harvest a whole plant out of here, I can plant more seeds, and that's going to keep succession planting going in my containers. I'm also going to be doing the same in my garden. So when I take a bigger harvest from the garden, I'll be planting a whole nother row of lettuce every time I take a row out. And that's called succession planting, where it's ensuring that there's always a fresh new plant ready every time that you start to harvest. Stan says hi. So I hope this has all helped you today. I hope this is something that helps you be more sustainable at home, more healthy at home, because the grocery stores aren't getting any cheaper, and we'll all be a little bit healthier and a little bit wealthier if we can just make our crops at home. So thanks so much for stopping by today. I hope this has been useful for you. If you have any questions of our content, just go ahead and leave those down below. At the end of the day, I'm just an idiot with a shovel, but if my experience can help you, I'd love to try. And I hope that stuff like this is helping you in your own lives, where you can have a nice and never-ending salad bowl right outside on your porch, and then every night, you have a nice, healthy choice for dinner instead of having to go to the grocery store. If you haven't noticed, last week we had 2 episodes drop, one of the garden, and then also our monthly movie challenge video. It's called Youth, and it's about a mad scientist. My cousin and I have been putting in a lot of work doing those videos every month. So far, we've done 3 this year, and we're going to keep on trying to do that as we go. So I hope those are good for you, too. We just try to make the best entertaining content we can. Thank you so much for stopping by, everybody. I hope you all have a nice rest of your day.